My name is Braun, Department of Government. Since I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to jump straight into the dissertation. In my dissertation project, I try to answer the question why some religious communities protect victims of mass persecutions while others do not. In particular, I'm going to test the following hypothesis. I'm going to test the hypothesis that local religious minorities are more likely to protect victims of genocide. The intuition behind this hypothesis is twofold. First of all, local religious minorities have been themselves always been marginalized and therefore are better able to set up clandestine organizations, and they also have empathy with other groups that are being persecuted. So that's sort of the theory. The Holocaust in the Netherlands provides a very tragic but also a unique opportunity to assess the minority hypothesis, because it was literally at the fault line of the Reformation and the Counter-Reformation. In 1609, a coalition of merchants and Protestants staged an insurgency against the Catholic King of Spain, and as a result, the country was split up in two halves. One of these halves, the northern half, became completely Protestant, and the southern half became completely Catholic. The reunification of the country in 1648 resulted in sort of a missionary crossfire because both camps tried to make inroads on each other's territories. And this had a lasting imprint on the religious landscape of the Netherlands and was still visible if you would look at the religious map right before the outbreak of World War II, when the Germans started deporting Jews. As you can see, there's this Protestant part in the north, Catholic part in the south, but there's all this mixing taking place around the border. Apart from conflict between Protestant and Catholics, there was also conflict within the Protestant community taking place, and all sorts of smaller Orthodox factions split it off from the mainstream church, and this resulted in another group of minority churches. So in order to test my hypothesis, I sort of look at three sub-hypotheses. First of all, I would expect that Catholics would be more likely to rescue Jews in Protestant parts of the country. The inverse, which is the second hypothesis, Protestants were more likely to rescue Jews in Catholic parts of the country. And third, these smaller Orthodox groups were expected to rescue Jews throughout the country because there are minorities everywhere, okay? So I do this by building a geocoded database of Jewish evasion based on German administrative records. The Germans, before they started deporting, registered where all Jews lived in sort of a census for Jews only. This information, these registrations had information, I'm going to walk out very briefly, on last name, first name, date of birth, and over here, most importantly for today's talk, the exact address of where the Jews were living. The addresses are used to geocode the Jews on a map, and if you zoom out, this sort of looks like this, okay? Then the names and the date of birth are used to match these registrations against commemoration books, which list all people who perished in the camps. If you combine this information, you get and this is sort of what evasion then would look like if you combine all this information. In total, I have information on 127,000 Jews, and I know for these Jews exactly where they live and whether they evaded the deportations, yes or no. I paired this data set with information on all church communities throughout the country. And I paired this by drawing circular buffers around each individual Jew. So I drew a buffer, which I blew up, and the yellow dot here is the Jew. And then I counted the number of church communities, and I calculated proportions. In particular, I created two types of measures. First of all, I took the proportion of Catholic churches. And of course, we would expect Catholic churches to have a positive effect of evasion on the green parts, the Protestant parts, and a negative effect in the red parts, in the Catholic parts. So I sort of let this effect vary for different regions. I also created, to test the third hypothesis, took the proportion of all these smaller Orthodox Protestant churches inside the buffer. I used a wide range of different buffers to make sure that the actual distance that I chose was not sort of biasing the results. This is not important. So, and this is sort of what the results look like. So here we have the effect of being close to Catholic churches instead of being close to Protestant churches This is represented here on the y-axis. And here on the x-axis, we sort of have the overall strength of Catholicism. And as we can see, the effect flips around. And here, the next one should be the effect of Orthodox Protestant.